The International Labour Organization says domestic workers across the globe are being overworked. A new report says the number of domestic workers has increased, but working benefits have not kept up. According to the ILO, there are 52.6 million worldwide. Of those, 83% are women. 29.9% are excluded from national labour legislation, which means they have no legal protection. 45% are not entitled to weekly rest period or paid leave. The ILO also says the number of domestic workers worldwide has grown by 19 million since 1995, and it says there are likely to be many more that go unreported. Well, joining us now is Malte Luebker. He's the author of the ILO's report titled Domestic Workers Across the World. He is live from Bangkok. Thank you very much for being on Al Jazeera. So give us the highlight, the main concern that you have today as far as the plight of domestic workers around the world.
I think what we really see is that domestic work is a very, very significant source of employment for women around the world. You just cited the headline statistics there. It's a substantial part of employment, 52 million. That's about the same as the total labor force of countries like Mexico or Nigeria or Vietnam. So we need to make sure that these people are protected, that these are decent jobs with decent working time, decent wages, maternity protection. It's these kind of things that all other workers take for granted that we need to extend to domestic workers. We don't see that in place all around the world.
Yeah, and it's widely reported that domestic workers' rights are most neglected in Gulf countries, for instance, you know, Kuwait, places like Kuwait, Bahrain and so on. Have you noticed an improvement at all since, you know, this has come to light?
Well, if you look at the global statistics, you indeed see that Latin America and some other regions have far stronger protections in place than the Gulf countries in Asia. It's not only the Gulf, it's also Asia, where you have sort of the essential protections lacking in terms of limiting working hours, giving a Sunday off, maternity protection, these kind of things. So that's really the deficits that we are pointing to. It's the basic rights at work that all other workers expect, and there's no good reason really to treat domestic workers differently.
There is often a lot of blame on the host countries, but what about the countries of origin? Don't they share responsibility? Sometimes even aren't they complicit in the exploitation of domestic workers? When you take a look at some of the legislation in countries like Malaysia, for instance.
Well, I think that's a very fair point, and what you see in Asia, across Asia really, is a rethinking of how to treat domestic workers domestically. I think the ILO's Domestic Workers Convention that was adopted in 2011 has really set sort of a rethinking in motion there. The Philippines is a good example. The Philippines is a major sending country for domestic workers, and they were the first country in Asia to ratify the new Domestic Workers Convention. They've updated their labour legislation. And I think it's a very credible way to signal that you're serious about improving domestic workers' rights. If you lead by example, if you ratify the ILO Convention, you take on obligations to bring your legislation into line with the basic principles that apply to other workers, and you subject to monitoring by the ILO. So it's a firm commitment that you take up as a country when you ratify. We see it in other countries across Asia as well, that there's a big improvement going on. We see examples from Singapore, a host country, for example, that is now extending Sunday off, a day off work to domestic workers. We've got changes in Vietnam. The labour laws there are revised and they will apply to domestic workers. Thailand is another example for a change where the right to day off, to sick leave, to public holidays has been extended to domestic workers.
So there is some improvement. Thank you very much for talking to us, Malte Luebker of the International Labour Organization, live from Bangkok.